In the last edition of Rock Stories, we took you inside the Tap and Mallet pub in South Wedge and introduced you to the people responsible for sparkling the revitalization of the neighborhood. In this edition of Rock Stories, we'll take a deeper look at the tightly knit community.
You're listening to the sounds of a thriving neighborhood. You're hearing the hustle and the bustle of a revitalized Rochester neighborhood that's come back from a recession from the early 90s when property values were low, businesses were vacant, and jobs were scarce. Today, it is a community of diverse people like Shelby Preisbolick, who owns Little Button Craft and Press, or Jeff Friedman, who is one of the co-owners of Little Venice Pizza.
Because it's an actual neighborhood. You get to know your neighbors, you get to know who actually lives here. The small business owners actually live within the neighborhood. You know people. It's not just a random city where it's nondescript people. You know who you're seeing on the streets.
Yes, it's very diversified. A lot of different walks of life, a lot of historic buildings and stuff like that, and a lot of good things to see, and just generally a lot of nice people.
People who have been here for generations, like Henry Padron, one of the co-owners of Hippocampo Books, has turned his long-time desire to create an active and comfortable space for young bookworms of many cultures into a bookstore after a 34-year teaching career at the Rochester City School District.
So I know 14 generations of families from this area, and getting to know them, the quality of people they are, made me have a good feeling for the type of community that this is. So when we decided to go into our business venture, which is relatively new, this bookstore, it was a no-brainer. It was a good community, good people, and looking forward to doing good things.
The South Wedge is also a vibrant space for young managers such as Lene Schaefer, who has recently been managing at Cheesy Eddie's, one of the most beloved family-owned bakeries in the Rochester area.
And it has been a great community. Everyone supports each other. We all help each other with events and donations, promotion, all that kind of thing. So it has really become it's a community as well as individuals.
The South Wedge neighborhood is in the southeastern part of Rochester. The wedge part of the name comes from the triangular wedge shape of the land that makes up the South Wedge. The true boundaries of the South Wedge are up for debate, but most residents agree that the heart of the South Wedge is in South Avenue, Clinton Avenue, and Gregory Street. The South Wedge is right along the Genesee River to the west and located near downtown Rochester and the University of Rochester's River Campus. The neighborhood has a variety of businesses, from bars and restaurants to bookstores and salons. The Wedge, as it is commonly known, is also known for its art. If you drive through the Wedge, you'll see many murals on the sides of buildings, and even some parking meters have been turned into sculptures. The Wedge neighborhood began in the 1820s as a cluster of small houses along the Erie Canal. Growth was small at first until the 1860s, when Rochester's first trolley system moved into the area. Famed abolitionist Frederick Douglass moved into the South Wedge area around this time, and his house still stands today at the corner of Hamilton and Bond Streets. After World War II, residents moved out of the Wedge to the suburbs. The exodus of people leaving left many businesses struggling to survive. Ultimately, many of those businesses eventually closed. The decline soon followed until the 1970s, when the South Wedge Planning Committee was formed. The Planning Committee was formed by longtime Wedge residents to reverse the decline. Realtor Richard Sarkis has been selling properties here for decades. Sarkis says college students were instrumental into the revitalization of the South Wedge.
In the 70s, there was a resurgence. There was reconstruction. It was also taking place right here in Cornhill, where I live now. And these areas were in pretty rough shape. The buildings were falling apart, and they needed an insurgent. And the government, the U.S. government, had a program back in the 70s where you can buy these buildings for $1, and you can go, and a lot of them were RIT students. Many of them were RIT students who came in. They were artists, musicians. They came into these areas, especially in the South Wedge and Cornhill at the time. And they put money into the revitalizing the area, and they stabilized a lot of the buildings.
The resurgence was short-lived. The economic woes of the late 1980s and early 90s saw property values in the South Wedge plummet. The South Wedge mirrored the instability of the economy. While other areas were struggling to come back from the Great Recession in 2008, property values in the South Wedge continued to rise. In fact, according to Sarkis, property values in the South Wedge have risen 19% over the past 3 years. Sarkis says the reason for this uptick was because of the upwardly mobile people with disposable incomes moving into the nearby South Wedge neighborhoods.
So there is a influx of people coming from other cities where they have sold their homes in Seattle or San Francisco for $800,000, and they come here and they see a property for $150,000. We have bidding wars.
According to Sarkis, many people who buy houses in the South Wedge are single young professionals in their 30s or 40s. These people are less interested in owning cars because of the cost, so they use bikes or other methods of transportation to get around. The walkability of the South Wedge is appealing to these people, Sarkis says. U of R students find the Wedge appealing to live in because of its close proximity to campus. Younger people moving into the Wedge makes the area seem more trendy to outsiders. South Wedge regulars like Sean Scanlon know just how trendy the area is. Sean Scanlon and his wife Renee moved to the Rochester area in 1996 and lived in an apartment off Monroe Avenue, but enjoyed spending their time at Rohrbach's when it was part of the old historic German house on Gregory Street, which was their watering hole. Eventually, Rohrbach's closed, and Scanlon said he and his wife didn't feel comfortable around a lot of people. Scanlon says they were lost. But when the Tap and Mallet opened in 2007, the Scanlons found a new home and lost all of the inhibitions they were feeling before.
A funny story, I remember we went to the Tap and Mallet we were there for probably 6-7 months and had built up some really decent relationships. And it was at the time when we were invited to go to the staff picnic at Marie Daley Park. This sent us into a bit of a tizzy socially wise. We weren't entirely sure how we fit in with this particular crew. At this point in time, we were just loyal customers to the Tap and Mallet, and we knew everybody from a professional and patron sort of way. So we got some beer, we made a dish to pass, and we drove down to Marie Daley Park, and we parked on the street, and we sat in the car for 45 minutes discussing whether or not we actually had the courage to get out of the car and break down that last barrier that kind of separated the bartenders and the clients. So it took a while, and we got up the courage, and it's probably the best decision we've made. We found in that moment and in all the moments since a sense of community that we, I guess, had been looking for but didn't know what or how to define it until it hit us square in the face.
Sean and Renee say that sense of community is because of the people they have met.
It is warm and inviting for families to have kids. They've got a full bar and great people actually serving drinks. The food is amazing, and as a vegan, I can find really great eats here and stuff my face, play some pinball, and get some decent beers in me. And walk out satisfied. I think the South Wedge is a remarkable neighborhood, and it is as diverse and eclectic a group of individuals and businesses as you're going to find anywhere you go. You know, be it this city or any other city, comparatively speaking. I think the South Wedge has more going on artistically and personality-wise. You can't really get any better than the South Wedge, and I think Swoburger and Playhouse perfectly exemplifies that sort of neighborhood uniqueness.
The South Wedge is known for its sense of community. Many businesses are a part of either the Business Association of the South Wedge or the South Wedge Planning Committee. Both organizations aim to continue developing the South Wedge for the better. The South Wedge even has 2 neighborhood newspapers, The Wedge and the South Wedge Quarterly. These publications help businesses and residents alike feel connected to one another. South Wedge business owners, such as Hedonist Ice Cream, have experienced the Wedge's sense of community firsthand.
Well, the South Wedge is really like a tight-knit community. Like, a few months back, our window was broken by someone who was at the bar next door. And from the time that it was broken, the calls into the police station by people just walking by did not stop. Like, our owner was here with the police, and people were still calling it in. And, like, that's the kind of community that we have in the South Wedge. It's like, everyone knows everyone, and everyone helps, like, support everyone else, and it's amazing.
From ice cream to dog owners, the sense of community in the South Wedge is felt through everyone.
Yeah, I moved here from New York City 8 months ago, and this is one of only 2 neighborhoods that I would let my husband move us into. It was either the South Wedge or the Park Ave district, because I had to be within walking distance of everything.
Yeah,
that
I live
needed
here and
and
I work
wanted.
in the Park Ave district, so it works out. So it's fun.
My dog sure likes it here. No, I love it here. Like he said, the people are amazing. There's a great restaurant and bar scene. I mean, and it's not homogenized here. It's a nice, like, crew of different types of people that live around here, which is awesome. What's not to love about the South Wedge?
And what's not to love about a revitalized neighborhood filled with the sounds of life? Rock Stories is a production of the audio storytelling class at the college at Brockport. Producers of this piece were Joe Massaro, Nathan Munt, and Matt Wilson.